Hello, everyone. I am Matt Williamson at Williamson NFL. How's everyone doing? Are we okay? Have we calmed down a little bit? Have we realized the sky is not falling? Steelers struggle playing in Cleveland. They struggle on short weeks on the road, as all teams do. And guys, the Browns played really well. And I am angry at myself for underestimating the Browns, to be very honest with you. That I really shouldn't have looked as... Here, put it this way. The Browns, since Winston took over for the terrible Deshaun Watson, are now an average football team. The 2024 Browns, the whole season, is one of the 8 to 10 crapo teams. This team isn't. And I really should have just focused on since Winston took over. And I know that they've made some trades, Darius Smith, Amari Cooper, their season's shot. But they were by far the worst offense in the league before when Watson was out there. He's that crippling. He's that terrible. But this version is going to win games. They're 2-2. They beat the Ravens. They beat the Steelers. The Saints game looks a lot worse for them, but they were in it till the end, and then the dam just exploded on their defense. So the Steelers played bad. I mean, they did, but Browns played well, and the Browns are going to beat some more teams. Let's just get that out of the way. The sky is not falling. Let's do our snap count stuff. Steelers offense, out of a possible 67 snaps, the entire offensive line hit that mark. Russell Wilson was out there for 61 of 67. Pickens was out there for 60. That's a lot for a receiver. Freiermuth, 43. Love it. That's what he needs to be out there. He needs to be out there a heavy percentage. We'll get to him more later. 40 for Austin. Jaylen Warren, 38. I love seeing that too. More Warren, more Freiermuth. That's my motto. I love Darnell Washington too. He was out there for 37. Michael Pruitt for 31, Najee for 27, Mike Williams for a very nondescript 19 snaps, Van Jefferson for 17, Connor Hayward for 13, more on him later, not good. Cordarrelle Patterson for 7, Fields played 6, as you could have figured out. Skoranek was out there for 2, and Spencer Anderson as an extra offensive lineman played 1. Minka was the only defensive player to play every snap. He played all 55. Queen only missed 1. Watt only missed 3, which I think is too many, to be honest. I don't need Watt out there 52 out of 55 snaps. Let's make that 5 to 10 snaps less and make them better snaps, hopefully. Porter was out there for 52. 50 for Jackson and Elliott. 48 for Cam, 42 for Herbig, 37 for Ogunjobi, 29 for Peyton Wilson, 27 for Benton, 24 with Roberts. Still have not gotten any injury news on him. We won't because it's a weird week, but he was injured late. Bishop for 22, Preston Smith for 16, a dozen for Loudermilk, 11 for Lowry, 11 for KZ, only 9 for Sutton. Remember, Bishop was at 22, and Sutton has not been good. Killebrew for 3, Mark Robinson for 1. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA, head to BetOnline today and get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, I got a lot of notes, as you can imagine. We're going to start with Steelers' defensive side of the ball. I really expected the Steelers' pass rush to dominate. And I said a lot of things going into the game, including in the pregame show, that this game and the Bengals coming up, I expected a dozen sacks in those 2 games. And yes, weather absolutely affected that, and field conditions and wetness and get off and all those good things. But it was brutal. And hey, the Browns were playing on the same field. Their pass rush was great, especially early. You knew that both would dwindle, late in the game when you're playing with that much snow. But only 1 tackle for loss, too. That's rough. I mean, that's the unit that stirs the drink for this team. It's the best defensive line in the league. And, I mean, they ended up with 1 tackle for loss, 6 quarterback hits, no sacks. Where the Browns had 4 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, and 11 tackles for loss. Garrett's unbelievable, and the rest of their D-line's not bad, but the Steelers have a better front. They do. Cleveland entered this game having allowed a league-worst 46 sacks. The Browns, started Jermaine Ifedi at left tackle. He had played 47 career snaps at left tackle, even though he's been in the league for quite a while. And he was terrible. Herbig whipped him repeatedly. Now, Winston did a much better job than Wilson of avoiding sacks, so some of this is quarterback related without question. But you should abuse this matchup more than you did. Jack Conklin, though, let's give him a little credit, but he held Watt to just 1 pressure across 24 matchups. 4.2% pressure rate. This is the second game of the season where Watt was held to just 1 pressure. The other one was against the Jets. He has recorded just an 8.9 pressure rate on the season, his lowest in a season since 2018. Needs to be brought up. I'm not telling you Watt stinks or anything like that, and boy does he handle a lot of attention and doubles and triples and all that stuff. But that's not new for him either. I mean, it's not the first year that he's been getting a lot of attention from opposing pass rushing schemes. It's just notable. I love that the Steelers swat down what seems like multiple passes every week. They're the best team in the league at it. It's a skill, and I love it. Winston, only 1 interceptable pass for him. That's rare. A big key going into this game is he's going to throw you a couple. Make sure you catch them. Well, he threw you 1 and you caught it, but that was it. He led the upset over the Ravens. I'm impressed with him. I've always been a Winston guy. I just love his style of play. He struggled against the Chargers, a really good defense. He played really well in that Saints game. It was the defense's reason they lost. So Winston has made this team a lot different. He completed 5 of 6 passes on the run. You don't think of him as a great mover, but he moved really well in this game. And he has lost some weight since he came in the league. For 97 yards, despite those snowy conditions, on all his other passes where he wasn't on the move, on the run, they define that as going 8 miles an hour or faster. This is a next-gen stat. He was 13 of 21 for 122 yards with an interception. So I wonder, you're playing these guys again. Do you want to keep him in the pocket? I mean, I'm not suggesting he's Daniels or Lamar, but he did a lot more damage on the move than in the pocket, and that's not really his style. But you don't have a lot of recent tape on him either. I mean, these guys are allowed to improve in different areas of their game. I thought he and Jerry Jeudy were really impressive, and I've been down on Jeudy. I mean, I thought he was basically a bust. That's harsh. He's not what he's lived up to be. But the last couple of weeks, he's been great. 3.4 yards per route run for Jeudy. That's really, really good. So the longest Browns run of the day was only 9 yards. And Chubb averaged 3 yards per carry, 3.0. But he carried the ball 20 times for 59 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he generated his most EPA per carry despite averaging just 3.0 yards. And what that means is how it felt. When you watch the game, he was better than his numbers indicated. There's no question about it. That's the beauty of some of these stats like EPA, some of these metrics. He forced 5 missed tackles. The Browns' rushing attack as a whole produced a season-high 52% success rate. They just didn't have any explosive runs. It's second game this season in which a team has had a success rate over 50% without a carry of 10 or more yards. So it's pretty consistent, and he did a lot of the work himself. I fear Chubb might be on his way back in a big way. Back to Judy. He caught all 6 of his targets for 85 yards, including 2 catches for 19 yards on the Browns' go-ahead drive late in the fourth quarter. He excelled on in-breaking routes. In the middle of the field is a little worrisome. Accumulated 4 receptions for 72 yards on such targets. Judy also generated a career-high catch rate over expected. Trust me, that's just a good stat. That being said, I thought this was another great game by Elliott. Big plays as well as consistency. Another really strong showing by Peyton Wilson. I think the future is bright with him. But one of my favorite young guys on the team, Keanu Benton, his run defense remains a major problem, especially if you're going to call him a nose, you know. So I would love to get Montravius Adams back at some point. Lowry's not much of a help, you know. Now let's flip us to the other side of the ball. I thought the Browns D played a very good game. Very good game. The Steelers drove for touchdowns after Browns back-to-back turnovers. So when they got a short field is when they did well. When they didn't, they couldn't do much against a good Browns defense. I mentioned the Steelers only had 1 tackle for loss. Browns had 11. Enough said. All right, Russell Wilson completed 21 of his 28 pass attempts for 270 yards and a touchdown, with 135 of his yards in the touchdown coming on 4 deep completions. Very boom or bust. So all those big gains not padded his stats. They matter. They're super important, but not as much down-to-down consistency. Wilson's 4 completions, 135 yards, are both the most allowed by Browns under Jim Schwartz. He took over last year. After blitzing at the 6th highest rate in the NFL entering this week, the Browns blitzed a season-low 14% of its dropbacks. They were at 36%. They were only at 14 in this game. And it worked. It really worked. I thought Warren was very impressive. Way better than Najee. And I wonder if the rigors of the season are starting to catch up to Najee. He's never had great burst, speed, vision, but 2.6 yards per carry for him in this game. Way too many negative runs as a team. Austin should have had 2 big explosive touchdowns to me, but Wilson greatly underthrew him on the first one. I really liked how Freiermuth was used, some in-breaking stuff. I thought that stuff was there all night after watching the tape a second time, that they could have got a lot more passing production out of the middle of the field. But at least we saw some slants and in-cutters from Freiermuth and Pickens. And we saw an increased snap count as we opened the show with. That's great. Connor Hayward, he might be a special teamer only. I think he is. I don't know what he brings to the table. I think he's a liability as an offensive player. I understand that he's the captain's son or brother and all that, but no, he is a problem. Garrett really owned Dan Moore in this game, but they should have helped him more early. I mean, you knew who Myles Garrett is. Garrett tied his season most with 8 pressures generated. 25% of his pass rush attempts generated a pressure. He had 6 pressures and 2 sacks on 14 pass rush attempts against Dan Moore. So 8 of his 14 pass rush attempts against Moore were massively successful. This was his 6th game generating 5 or more pressures this season, tied for the 3rd most such games in the NFL. Garrett currently ranks 2nd in the NFL in total pressures with 58 as we enter the rest of the NFL slate this week. The 4th down stuff was messy, real messy for the Steelers offense. Clunky, awkward, slow developing. The one play too, McCormick trips over someone's foot and Fields is hesitating to run, which is part of the play call. That stuff needs to get worked out in a big way. But here's your Steelers' first half script. Missed a field goal, turnover on downs, field goal, fumble, and a half. That's when you should have taken control of this game. I mean, meanwhile, you basically possessed the football for the entire first half. Didn't get anything out of it. The Tomlin stuff. End of half, he allowed 40 seconds to run off the clock on defense. And really the final 2 minutes of both halves were really costly time management from Tomlin. I thought it was pretty poor, to be honest with you. And it shocks me at this stage of his career. I think he's a wonderful head coach. I think his clock management is still amongst the worst in the league and probably always will be. The Browns and Steelers combined for 16 points and 1 touchdown in the first 3 quarters, but 27 points and 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Pretty crazy. And that's when the snow was flying heavy and all that. But, okay, red zone possessions. The Steelers only had 2. They only ran 7 plays in the red zone, 1 touchdown, 1 field goal. The Browns had 4 red zone possessions, had 12 red zone plays, 3 touchdowns, 1 field goal. But the Steelers did have 4 plays of 30 or more yards compared to none for the Browns. Just throw this out there. Pro Football Focus had their 3 highest graded players from this game. Shelby Harris got an 89.9 grade. Cam Hayward got a 91.3. And Nick Herbig had a 93.3. I don't know how Myles Garrett wouldn't be number 1 on this list, or maybe even Winston for that matter. But this is what they said about Herbig. Even in a losing effort, Herbig put forth a tremendous effort, and Herbig benefited a great deal from all the attention paid to TJ Watt. That was absolutely a factor. As a pass rusher, Herbig finished with a team-high 26.3% pass rush win rate, 3 pressures, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, and 2 pass rush wins that didn't result in a pressure. Herbig wasn't a one-trick pony, though. He made a tremendous impact in the run as well, totaling 3 stops and an assist. Huge thing that I already touched on. Just way better average starting field position for the Browns. Now, that doesn't excuse things. You get that by you earn field position. But you got to realize, too, the Browns receivers dropped a lot of passes in this game. So the offensive passing production could have been heavier, a bit more for the Browns. Didn't think I'd be saying this, and I don't think we'll be saying it much, but the Browns won the special teams battle. They were basically better in all phases. That shank punt was unbelievably massive, and if I had to say one play of the game, that would be it. I mean, you gave Cleveland the ball back at the Steelers' 45 with 3:22 remaining after a 16-yard punt. That's almost the same as a turnover. I think that's all I got. Now, we already touched on Robert's injury. I have that written down. That's something I'm going to look into. We'll learn more about that. But that's a wrap. Steelers are still 8-3. They got a lot of time to lick their wounds. I'm happy that they won this game, not because of one big problem. Like if it was, Steelers' run defense was horrific. Chubb just tore them apart, and they had no answer for it. That's not how it was. It was a lot of small to big things, and they didn't play very well. So there you have it. Over and out.